Imagine a being whose shadow looms over all of Middle-earth, not because he wields a magical weapon, but because his very essence is domination, cunning, and primordial power. Such is Sauron, the Dark Lord. Even when separated from the One Ring, he remains one of the greatest threats ever to exist in Arda. Many fans immediately associate Sauron's strength with the One Ring, and rightly so, for the cursed jewel concentrates part of his own essence. But here's the essential detail. Sauron was already a formidable entity before forging the ring, and he continues to be so without it. To understand this, we must explore his origin, his nature as a Maya, his powers of manipulation, and his influence that transcends any physical object. The Maya origin, the foundation of Sauron's power. Before he was known as Sauron, he was Myron, the Admirable. He belonged to the same order of spiritual beings as Gandalf, Saruman, and Radagast. The Maiar, spirits created by Eru Ilúvatar to aid the Valar in shaping Arda. Unlike many Maiar inclined toward music, art, or nature, Myron was deeply drawn to order, structure, and perfection. He valued discipline and efficiency above all. This means that Sauron's power does not stem from the ring, but from his immortal nature itself. He was already incredibly skilled in smithing, sorcery, and the art of crafting long before being corrupted by Melkor Morgoth. 2. The influence of Morgoth, the master of domination. When Myron turned to Morgoth, it was not out of weakness, but out of affinity for his ideals. In Morgoth, he saw the possibility of imposing order upon chaos, albeit through tyranny. From Morgoth, Sauron learned the art of spiritual corruption, manipulating wills, seducing hearts, twisting noble intentions. Dark magic on a cosmic scale, ritualism, necromancy, the creation of beasts and servants. The seduction of fair appearances. Remember, he once assumed beautiful forms to deceive the elves as Anatar, Lord of Gifts. Thus, even without the One Ring, Sauron already carried within him the full dark legacy of Morgoth. The ring only concentrated part of this power. 3. The strategic mind, a master manipulator. Sauron is not just brute force. What makes him truly dangerous is his strategic intellect. He deceived the elves into forging the rings of power. He corrupted mighty men, turning them into the Nazgul. He influenced entire nations, like the Haradrim and Easterlings, without ever having to fight them personally. Here's the key. Sauron doesn't need to fight with sword or spell. His power comes from psychological, political, and spiritual domination. Even without the ring, he retains this terrifying ability. 4. The innate power of a Maya. Let's recall, the Maya are immortal spirits. When Gandalf fought the Balrog, we witnessed 2 Maya battling. What does this mean? Scale of power. A Maya is far beyond anything a human, elf, or dwarf can confront. Resilience. Even without a physical body, their essence endures. This is what happened to Sauron after being defeated in Númenor and later in the War of the Last Alliance. Multiple forms. Sauron could once assume different shapes, though he lost this ability after Númenor's downfall. Therefore, the ring does not grant him immortality or spiritual power. He is already immortal by nature. The ring merely amplifies his external dominion. 5. His dominion over Mordor and his servants. Even without the ring, Sauron rules Mordor, a fortified empire, commands armies of orcs, trolls, fell beasts, wargs, and darker creatures, is served by the Nazgul, bound to him by fate and their own rings. In other words, the very fact that he is the gravitational center of fear already makes him powerful. The ring magnified this control, but its absence did not erase his influence. 6. Fear is a weapon. Tolkien shows us that in Middle-earth, fear itself is one of Sauron's greatest weapons. Entire peoples bow to him without ever having seen him. Kingdoms align with his power to avoid his wrath. Even Saruman, a fellow Maya, eventually falls under his shadow. Even without the ring, Sauron is a living myth of terror. His presence is like a black cloud pressing down on every heart. 7. Comparing him to other mighty beings. To grasp his strength without the ring, let's compare. Gandalf, a Maya limited by the rules of the Valar, yet still able to defeat the Balrog and rally armies. Saruman, with mere words, nearly convinced Rohan to surrender. Balrogs, feared even by the greatest elven warriors. Sauron is of the same order, but with centuries of experience, Morgoth's tutelage, and dominion over an entire nation. He doesn't need the ring to tower above most beings in Middle-earth. 8. The real role of the One Ring. So what exactly was the ring's true function? To contain part of his essence, Sauron poured some of his power into it, ensuring control over the other rings of power. To amplify his influence, with the ring, his ability to dominate wills was near absolute. To bolster his physical form and strength, the ring made him far harder to defeat. But note, this does not mean he was powerless without it. On the contrary, even without it, he still managed to threaten all of Middle-earth. The ring was a multiplier, not the root of his strength. 9. The fascinating duality of Sauron. The most intriguing thing about Sauron is his duality. He was once an incredibly intelligent, creative, and beautiful being. He became the symbol of fear, destruction, and darkness after his fall. This contrast makes him fascinating. Even without the ring, his strength lies in his immortal mind and essence, not in any external weapon. 10. Interactive reflection. What if you lived in Middle-earth? Now think with me. If you were a leader of men in Middle-earth, and word came that Sauron had returned, even without the ring, would you dare resist him? Or would you surrender, believing resistance futile? Could your mind withstand the promises of power he might whisper? That's the essence of Sauron. He doesn't need brute force to win, for his greatest weapon is his ability to make us doubt. Conclusion: the Lord of Shadows exists beyond the ring. Sauron is powerful without the One Ring because he is an immortal Maya, inherently mighty. He learned corruption and domination from Morgoth. He is a genius of manipulation and strategy. He rules armies, servants, and entire nations. He inspires absolute fear across Middle-earth. The One Ring made him nearly unstoppable, but his essence was already that of an overwhelming being. And this, my friends, is what makes Sauron one of the most fascinating figures in fantasy literature. An enemy who transcends weapons and proves that true power often lies in fear and influence over hearts. That